my channel. My name is Dora Amondi. It's yet another weekend. We are here to cook, to learn, and to be educated on kitchen hacks. So I realized that we had a very long journey doing the vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and the pickles. I guess you guys probably were bored already. This week we are gonna do pizza, and I realized from chatting with my friends and putting up the advert on my WhatsApp status, so many people were responsive about it, and I was like, people really love pizza. So I have decided to take you to Italiano, where we're going to play with cheese and tomato paste and some toppings to make a beautiful pizza. Welcome. So guys, without much ado, I'm going to tell you the ingredients we need. We have flour, we have cheese. Cheese is one of the most important ingredients for pizza. We have paste, which I'm going to turn into proma word. I'm gonna write that word. There's a chef who told me what its name is, and I think I have forgotten, so let me not say the wrong word. So we're going to cook this paste. What I did to this paste is we have meat, which will be our topping. I pre-boiled this meat. It's not minced meat and it's not chunks of meat. It's in between. It was finely chopped. So I seasoned it, I boiled it, and I also added a thickener just to finish up the water in the meat. So the first thing we're going to do is mix our dough. The dough for the pizza dough, the mixture is the same as the bread dough. I think we're ready for our dough. Our measuring cups are ready. So guys, what I did, I made a dough prior to the recording so that I can save time. So this pizza dough, the brown stuff you're seeing is this flour that is made specifically for bread. So I used it with all-purpose flour and just mixed it. It's not a must to use it, but I thought it was going to bring beautiful texture. So this dough is actually very thin, but because of rising, that's why it looks like it's high. There are air pockets and air bubbles inside. So let's learn how to make this. Let's get into the dough process. So what you need is flour. I measured 2.5 cups of flour, and this can give like about three medium-sized pizza, but it's bigger, a bit bigger than the medium size. Then the first thing you want to do, you want to measure your yeast. So I have yeast, so I've saved it in a different I've kept it in a different storage container because I bought a lot of it, so I just pour it in here. So I will take 1 leveled teaspoon of yeast. I'm going to put it in a bowl. So what I want to do now is to activate the yeast. The yeast I'm using is instant yeast, and if you just want to do pizza once in a while, you don't have to buy a lot of yeast because you want to use fresh yeast. So for me, I do a lot of bread baking, so that's why I bought a lot of it. So once you put the yeast, you need to add 1 tablespoon of sugar. So I have my sugar here. So let me just add a bit more. This saucer is making my life hard. So that's 1 tablespoon of sugar. Why did I add sugar? Sugar helps the yeast to, it starts the process, it fastens the process, it helps the yeast to start activating. So I'll just pour in lukewarm water, about a cup or 2. If you want to know your yeast is good, it will already form stuff like bubbles. You want to keep that aside. That will show you that your yeast is good. If your yeast does not do anything, and even when you mix, your dough doesn't rise, that yeast is bad. So I'll just put it aside for about 5 to 10 minutes so that it can be able to rise, activate. So on my flour, I'm going to just eyeball on salt. So salt you need probably to taste depending on your liking. So what I'll do, I'm going to mix your flour. So I will wait for 5 minutes for the yeast water to be ready. So I just wanted to mention that the cheese we use for pizza is, how do we call it, mozzarella. I was watching an Italian recipe and the lady was just calling the what we call it here is mozzarella, but the way she pronounced it was mozzarella. So I don't know which is right. She's Italian, so probably that's the right pronunciation. So this yeast is very easy to make. It's a 3-step recipe. So probably if you guys hang in my channel for a while, I'm going to do a recipe to help you guys save some coins on buying cheese in the supermarket. So also another important ingredient for cheese that brings out that Nepalese taste of pizza is oregano, and I got it at Carrefour. I really looked for it and it's quite affordable, and this one will last you for a very long while. So it's about 113 shillings. So I think this is something good to get for your kitchen. The dough that I had made is this. So once it rises, you need to proof your dough for between 3 hours and 18 hours. Some people say you need to proof it for 24 hours. In my thinking, I'm thinking you're going to lose the gluten power of the dough, and the yeast will have died. So for myself, I have proofed this for 11 hours now. I woke up very early in the morning to prepare it, and every time it rises, I was just puffing it and molding it back into a ball. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some flour and just pour and knead it again. Before we continue with the dough, I just want to show you the process so that we save time. So as you can see, my yeast water, the yeast is good, it's active, there are bubbles. That is a good sign. So what you want to do, people like pouring water than flour, but I prefer doing the flour. So I'm gonna pour some and leave some to help me in kneading. So I prefer pouring the water so that I can be able to control the water in the dough, because sometimes you might pour in, there's some sugar still, you might pour in the flour in the water and you find that you have to add more and more flour, and now your measurements are going to be a bit tricky. Though when you're making bread and pizza, The measurements are not so fundamental to determine the outcome of your whatever you're making. Like cakes you have to measure to the core, but with bread you can eyeball and you're still going to get a good bread. Not so perfect, but still something that is good. So what I'm doing, I'm just mixing, and you can see it's a shaggy dough. So you don't want to make your dough to be very hard, but you don't also want to make it to be very, very shaggy. So I'm just trying to press. I'll need more flour in kneading. I'll just add that in a bit. So in a few, I will leave the spatula. I'll put it aside and use my hands to mix. I'm just avoiding that sticky dough getting on my fingers. So I'm just adding flour. Do not add so much flour. Oh my goodness. I do not like the filling. I like working with dough, but I just don't like the sticky part of the dough. So the kneading, normally for bread baking, kneading is usually a very intense procedure, and it helps the gluten to form well. However, it doesn't mean you have to use so much muscle. Kneading is just folding it in so that you can allow the air to get inside the dough, because that air is very good for baking the bread and it gives you a very nice finish. So I will knead this for about 10 minutes. Once I knead it for 10 minutes, I will add some oil. So you can also add oil in your mixture when you're kneading the dough, or you can add as you proof the dough. You just keep adding some oil as you need, and you can also use extra virgin olive oil. So I'm gonna knead this for a while and I'll be back. So guys, I'm still kneading, and I put in a bit, just a bit, like a tablespoon or two of oil to aid the kneading process and to reduce the stickiness on my hands. So when the dough starts to stop sticking on your hands, the gluten is forming, the dough is stretchy, and it's just ready to be put to proof or to rest. So what you want to do is just do like you're folding in. So this method is just trapping air in the dough. So once you do that and form like a pocket, it will help your dough to rise well. Then you'll take oil and just pour in a little bit of oil just to help it not stick in your bowl, and then you will cover it and you'll keep on checking from every hour. After an hour it will be double the size. Then you'll keep on checking, kneading and covering it back. So we're going to put it in a place where there's warmth or room temperature, and it will age to rise. So we're going to come back to our dough and I'll talk about it. So guys, we have the dough that I had proofed earlier. So it has formed air, so you just need to like poke it, but do it from the sides so that you don't poke all the air spaces. The air inside is very good for the pizza. It helps it to cook well. As you can see, it's reducing in size. Are you seeing the magic that's happening? That's the power of yeast. So I'll take some flour. Remember to wash your hands before you handle dough and food. I always do that before I start. It's just that I don't show it. So what I want to do is just fold. Can you see the dough is stretchy? It's not cutting when you're pulling. So that's a good sign. That's the idea behind proofing. So you're just folding. You're just folding gently, trapping in the air. Then I can put in a little bit of oil under. So mostly for pizza, people use olive oil, but equally vegetable oil just does the magic, but the olive oil gives it the original pizza taste. So I'm just folding my dough. Once I fold it, I'm going to transfer it on the surface, and I just want to fold it more. So at this point we want to partition our dough into the number of pizza we're going to make. So we have our dough here and a knife, so I just want to cut. That's a small pizza. That's a good size. It's another good size. So it's still sticky. You want to use some flour. Pulse. So you're still trapping. You're trapping the air inside and putting it aside. So we're going to proof it just one more time as we make the paste. When the dough is stretchy and soft, it's nice. And as we roll, you're still going to add more flour. So I'm just tucking it in, and then I'm going to gather all the tucks. So I'm trapping in air in. I put it aside. I'm so happy with the dough today. So we're just trapping in, putting it aside. And we just have one to go, and then we move to the next step of making the paste. The paste is made of tomato, some oregano, some garlic, and a bit of salt and onion. So for the onion, I prefer using white onion. It makes a very nice and not so onionish taste. The onion is very silent. So guys, before we do the tomato paste for the pizza, what you need to do is preheat your oven. And you know, pizza is made in very hot oven. So if you have the oven that has degrees, just put it between 450 and 500, the highest heat. The only thing I am thankful to God for our oven, it's a gas oven. Sometimes it's very hard to bake cake with, but for pizza I find it's the perfect oven, because it can go to very high heat. So I'll just light up the oven, and then I'm going to show you. There's this baking tin, just a random baking tin, but it's very heavy. So for pizza you need a pizza stone. It really helps in the baking, so I use it. So you can use any heavy round thing that is made of either cast iron or just a heavy baking tin, and then you're going to place your pizza pan on top of it. So it will be very heated, and it will help the bread to to brown nicely beneath. So I'll just, this is how you switch on the oven. It's very manual. And then the upper one, you have to switch it on. So I have to set them on the highest heat, right about there, and that right about there. So I'll just close the oven and let it heat while I do the other prep. I've already lit up the burner and placed the pot. What we need is onions and garlic, oregano. This is black pepper, and this is coriander powder. Then I have some mixed spices. So the most important spice, I think, is onion, garlic, and oregano. So the other ones are probably black pepper. So the other ones is just to your liking, the way you like spicing up your food, but don't put too much spices. So I'm just adding some oil. I'm adding some oil on the onions. I just want to brown them. So as they start cooking, you add your spices. So sorry, I didn't mention, we have the paste. As you saw, I'd already boiled it and I blended it. This one tastes very original, it's yummy. You should just try it. Then of course we will have salt and sugar. Let me just reach out to it. I still have the salt and sugar that we used earlier for the dough mixture, so I'm gonna use it. So you just want them to brown. So I'll start adding in my spices. Don't go too heavy on the spices. Just grind just a bit of mixed. It's almost over, so it's just not to grind, but there's something coming out. It's a good sign. So I'm gonna add, I want to add my, let me just let it brown a bit. So they're browned, the onion and the garlic have browned. So I'll just pour in my tomato paste. And I had saved some water that I used to boil the tomato paste, so I'll just clean up the bowl with it. Sorry. And add it in. So at this point, I'm going to add my sugar. I'm going to add my sugar, the one that remained. And just a pinch of salt to taste. So now I've added water and some paste. Then now our favorite pizza ingredients, the oregano. So I'm using this batch for the first time. You just want to sprinkle a couple of tiny pinches. I'm using half a teaspoon. Put in like probably half a tablespoon. would do, or a little bit more. Then you just stir. What you want to do is reduce the heat now. You reduce the heat so that it simmers, it boils, all the onions in there crush. And I'm just going to add, like, I have basil, so I'm going to just add a leaf. This basil, a bunch is 25 shillings at Carrefour, if you're near a Carrefour. So this will give it that beautiful smell. And at some point the basil, I'll just remove it and throw it away, put it aside. So I'll just take a lid and I'll cover it. Once I cover it, our oven is getting hot. I can feel the heat. So I'm just reducing the heat so that it simmers, and we want the water to evaporate. We remain with a thick taste. So after that, in the meantime, I'm just going to saute the meat that I'm going to use as a topping, and also I'm doing another one for vegetables. What you just need is to season the vegetables or marinate them, and then you will be able to assemble the toppings. So the hard parts are almost over, and then we get to the fun part.